segment. So thank you guys. We are more than halfway through our amazing emotional recovery conference here, and I hope you are enjoying it and eating everything up. So many good things have been shared, and I know I have learned a lot, and I felt very inspired. And I'm so excited to introduce our next guest. Tamarah, is it Tamarah or Tamarah? I'm thinking
it's Tamarah. Yeah.
Tamarah. Okay, I didn't want to butcher it, and I totally did.
Oh, that's fine.
But Tamarah is a SimplyHealed practitioner, and she began her own natural healing journey when she was diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder in her late 20s. And as part of her healing journey, she has been introduced to a variety of healing tools and became a certified SimplyHealed practitioner in 2011. She's also a doTERRA Diamond Wellness Advocate who promotes a wellness lifestyle for all levels of health in the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual areas. She is the mother of 5.5 kids, and I actually had to think about it. I was like, 5.5, how does that happen? I was like, oh! So I'm a little slow sometimes. But she is, she's just a light and is just such a gift. She's just a light to be around. I know I've interacted with her at a few different trainings, and she just always has a beautiful smile on her face, and you just want to hang out with her because she's super cool.
That's sweet of you.
You're okay. So it's all you. Passing the mic, girl.
Yay! Well, I thank you so much, Nicole, for putting this together. This has not been an easy feat, and you've done an amazing job. And I honestly I've been very busy with other things, other projects that we're launching this weekend, and I was like, I don't have the time for this. But I felt very impressed that I actually needed to make the time for this, to be with you guys. And I don't do private practice anymore for energy work. My doTERRA business has taken up a lot of that time, as well as my kids. And so one of the things that I just felt impressed with was like, I just need to provide energy work for this group. So today on our call, I'm going to be able to do some of that. It's a group energy session.
Awesome.
And be able to do whatever I can as we go through the 5 stages of grief and work through that. So my real intention for our call today, or for my section of today's call, is to help inspire the light within each of you guys that are here listening, and anybody that's listening to the recording as well. This is for you to have a greater sense of trust in your body, a greater sense of trust in your spirit in the process of healing. And there's just been so much going on, and I think it's just compounded a lot for all of us ever since the hurricanes started back in September. And just, it seems like every week there's a new tragedy in our areas in the United States. And I know there's stuff happening worldwide. We just don't hear as much of it on the news. It's just put my soul into a very thoughtful place with a desire to understand grief better. In fact, it's just very tender and very close to the surface right now. A lot of things going on. And my cousin, who is just a year younger than me, stage 4 colon cancer and not doing so good. And my other cousin came to me just last Saturday and said, hey, I don't think my cousin, our mutual, our cousin is going to make this work, work through this. And I was just in complete denial. I was just like, I can't even process this right now. Like, this is not computing. And so this has been very personal for me to actually come and make this presentation for you guys, because it's been very healing and helpful for me as I work through my own grief on a new level, in a new scenario. And that's part of life. We all have grief. So but this is the thing that I've learned. So I'm going to share my screen really quick. Let's see. Hopefully it shows up. You can see that, right, Nicole? I'm assuming yes. Okay. I want to talk about the stages of grief, and I want to give a different perspective to the stages of grief and how we can use natural tools and energy clearing, how that is a support to us during the stages, not necessarily through the stages, because the 5 stages of grief are like more of a framework, but they're not necessarily you experience one and then go to the next and the next and the next. I used to think that, but that's just not what it is. And I've had my own grieving experiences that have taught me how to work through grief. So I will say that this is the key lesson that I've learned through grief and through pondering on it and studying on it. Grief and pain are not our enemies. I think this is a normal human thing to want to put that away from us. That's not what we want to experience. And so we box it up, we stuff it down, we do anything to not experience grief and pain. But the reality is that they are gifts of this human existence, and they remind us of our eternal nature. And I think that that is a beautiful thing that for some reason we just have packaged as such a not good thing. So I think sometimes we're just so scared of the dark. We're just so scared of what we don't know and what we can't see. And I really feel, though, when we come to the dark with light in our hands, things become clear and the darkness dissipates. And so we're light seekers. And I really believe that all of us are looking for light to dissipate the darkness. And so I know all of us have experienced grief and loss to some degree, and it can show up in the loss of a loved one. It can show up in the loss of opportunity. It can show up in the loss of material possessions, which so many people have experienced with the fires and the floods and the hurricanes. It can show up in the loss of a friendship, the loss of experiences. Or not experiences of the loss of expectations, like somebody doesn't meet those expectations. There's just so many ways that we can experience grief and loss, and it isn't always solely through the passing of a loved one, though that typically triggers this deep level of emotion for so many of us. So I'm not unfamiliar with grief. I shared with you a little bit of what I'm going through right now with my sweet cousin. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? This is so ironic, but grief really is what started my healing journey. And so I want to share with you guys just a little bit about my own journey to physical and emotional healing, and just give you a tad bit of that, because I know everybody has a story, and my story is not to trump anybody else's. You all have very important and valid pain and grief and struggle. And but I'm just going to share with you so you have a little context of where I'm coming from. So when I was 27, I had two little girls, and that are not so little anymore. As you can see, the ones next to me in this picture holding hands. And we had just moved to a new state, and we had a new job, and I was pregnant with my third child. And so when I went in for my normal 20-week ultrasound, my OBGYN found no heartbeat. And it was just so surreal. And I'm sure all of you have experienced moments like this where time just slows down and you're in complete shock and you can't believe what's going on. My husband was actually traveling for work in Las Vegas, and he rushed home. And in that interim, I went to the hospital to get more testing to verify that the baby had passed away, which it had, even though I was in complete denial, because I'm like, I feel it moving inside of me. It's not dead. Just so many emotions going on inside of me. And that night we had started the process of inducing. And the next day I delivered a beautiful baby boy. That fit in the palm of my hand, and the grief of that overwhelmed me and my husband. And, there's so much to that story, but, my doctor is like, don't worry, it's just a fluke. This is like lightning strike, hitting you. It will never happen again. It's all good. Well, soon after that experience, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder called Hashimoto's. And if you guys are not familiar with Hashimoto's, it's something that, for me particularly, it impacted my muscles and my energy levels, my hormones, my weight. And the only solution that I was getting from my doctors was just to take a pill. So, and as I researched that, I discovered how that medication would actually over time destroy the function of my thyroid. And so I followed my intuition, and I decided that I would go find an alternative support. And I found a great naturopath who really supported my whole body in healing and recovery. And even so later, when I found out I was pregnant again, He continued to support my body and me through that whole pregnancy. And we had a beautiful baby girl, who's that third little girl right there. Zoe Olivia is what we named her. And she, that name means life and peace. And that's really what she was to us after our loss. It was a beautiful blessing. And so I thought my body was good. And, I was like, great, we're all good. I had a healthy baby. It was a one-time shot. No worries. But a few years later, I found out I was expecting again. And at my 20-week appointment, we went in again and we found that there was, again, no heartbeat. And the nightmare really was relived again. And we delivered another beautiful little baby boy, perfectly healthy, except that it had passed away. And again, fitting in the palm of our hand, mourned the loss of this little baby. And all these, we did autopsies after these babies because we're so confused, like what happened? And they're beautiful. They had no reasons really to have passed away. So after that, second loss, it took me a while to really be open to the idea of putting myself through that emotionally and physically again. And by the time, by this time we had actually moved to a new state for another job. And I found out that I was also expecting. So we had 3 kids at the time. I've lost 2 in pregnancy. And I found out I was expecting. And so I went to a doctor that was willing to keep track of things with me. After that, as you go into 13, 14, 15, 16 on weeks, we kept doing an ultrasound every single week to make sure everything was okay. And I remember I went to my 15-week appointment and everything was fine. And I came back for our 16-week appointment. And again, we found out that there was no heartbeat. And again, that flood of emotion just overwhelmed me. I just remember sobbing in my face, like completely like a mess because I was so emotional. We found out it was most likely consistent with all the other losses, that the baby most likely would pass away around 16, 17 weeks. My body would not go into miscarriage mode, and so we wouldn't find out until around the 20-week appointment. And when we delivered this little baby, we found out that it was a little girl. And really what happened after that was that the grief had just built over time and experienced. And so I had a lot of confusion on what was going on with my body and my spirit. And so at this time, a beautiful friend of mine approached me offering to provide some energy work. And I was like, awesome, yes, I'll totally do it. Anything I can get because I'm struggling, And the experience was remarkable. And after so many years of this kind of grief, building up. And then I sat down with her and in one session had such lightness, like so much release. And I left that. And I remember getting to the car because we were going on a family trip after that. And I just felt like so happy. And I hadn't felt so happy in so long. And it was just completely significant. So I looked into becoming trained in that modality, and I did. And that's why I'm a SimplyHealed Practitioner today. And soon after that, I was introduced to essential oils. And these have become such amazing tools for my health, for my physical health and my emotional well-being. So I just shared this story with you guys because I want you to understand that grief comes, I want you to know that I know that grief comes in waves, that grief comes out of nowhere. And I also want you to know that there is hope and healing through it all. As you can see in my picture, I have 2 little boys. They're like my OB said to me, so hope springs eternal when I got pregnant again. And she was just like rolling her eyes at me like, why would you put yourself through this again? And, but gratefully I had the tools to support me that I had never had before, and was able to carry these little boys full term. And we're so excited for another little one coming into our family, and able to trust my body to be able to carry this full term as I support my body in natural ways. So I just wanted to point that out to you guys, that there is pain and yet there is hope and joy. I think that, again, grief and pain get a bad rap. But they are the path of healing. There is no way to avoid the pain. There is no way to avoid the grief. It is actually what is the beautiful thing about it all. And so sometimes I remember imagining in my mind's eye, like I would feel every time I would lose another baby, it was like this pit inside of me got deeper and darker. And what was beautiful about it is that over time, that pit became, even though it got deeper and more scary in ways, in the healing process, that deep pit was only filled with love and with light. And the healing of it is a beautiful thing. So I know, like, many of us are scared to deal with the pain. We're scared of grief, but we have to be courageous. We have to be brave, because we keep ourselves from healing because we fear the grief and because we fear the sorrow. But something to just remember is that we can trust our bodies, and we can trust our spirits. We can trust that we are able, in the appropriate times and places, able to process the information and the experiences we need to process as we grieve. Because if we don't go through the grieving process, it's going to come up some way or another. But if we allow ourselves to grieve, we are going to find ourselves stronger. We're going to find ourselves more full of love. We're going to find ourselves healed on the other end. So we can't just say, I won't deal with that. We have to be okay with receiving the gift of grief into our lives. And I know that's so counterintuitive to many of our psyches, but it's super important. I think that pain and grief are a sign that a healing is actually occurring within us. The 5 stages of grief, and I'm sure all of you guys are super familiar with these, are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And they really just give us a framework for us to understand. These words give us a framework for us to understand what we're feeling, and sort of bring context to it, because it can feel like such a confusing abyss of an experience. So this brings a little more context and framework to the experience, so we're not so lost. Like I said earlier, these stages are not to be like expected to first have, denial, then anger, then bargaining, then depression, and then acceptance. Like, it can actually flow between all of them quite fluidly. And in the end, yes, you will probably get to a place of acceptance. But as far as the anger, bargaining, depression, and even denial, we flow between all of that quite frequently during the process of grief. But it all is meant to bring us closer to the end result of healing. And it's also really interesting if you look at these words. I observed these, and I just stood back a little bit, and I realized there is so much shame in our culture surrounding these areas. How many people feel shame for getting angry, or shame for wanting to rationalize things, shame for getting to a depressed state, shame for not wanting to acknowledge something? There's a lot of shame, and I really want to remind you guys, there is no shame in grief. There's a lot of misunderstanding around grief, and there's a great opportunity for you to become educated and educate those around you, especially your family members, on grief, so that it is not seen as something like you just, toss somebody aside because they're grieving, and they just don't know how to to phrase it, to express that. It brings a lot more compassion into your world when you really allow people to grieve, and you just don't know everything everybody's going through. But I also think that grief is a powerful tool that can propel us towards our power and towards our strength. And the process of healing is also a process of faith and trust in your spirit and your body, because, again, your body's not going to allow you physically to be able to take on more than you can handle. There are systems in place to make sure you don't go into complete overwhelm. That is part of why we have denial in the grief process. That is part of why we have anger and bargaining, because our body and our spirits are trying to make sense of something that can't make sense. So only takes on so much that it can at one time. And that is a good thing. That means you can trust your body to manage and work through this as you go through the grieving process. So let me see here. This is also something that I was thinking about quite a bit. When, there's big grief and loss, and then there's little grief and loss. And I remember getting triggered. Sorry, I have like a runny nose and no tissue. I remember getting triggered quite a bit with when I would lose some little thing in my house. Like I would lose a key or my wallet or something silly like that, right? And it would just create so much frustration, anger, and tension within me. And I took one moment one day, I was like, why am I responding this way? And this is the impression that came to me. And it was that as eternal beings, loss is foreign to our eternal and our divine nature. It is a part of the human nature, of our human nature, and it is our human experience to have loss. But we are designed to feel deeply this sense of loss in this experience of mortality, because loss helps us to value the gifts we have and the abundance we live in, all the while that helps us to expand our realization of how deep our capacity is to love. And it just really, and honestly, since that moment of realization, losing things don't really like stir up anxiety and frustration in me as much anymore. It's not the same trigger for me as it used to be once I had this realization, like I am an eternal and divine being, and I am meant to have everything. Of course it's going to feel wrong when I lose something. Of course it's going to feel wrong when something is lost, because that is not my eternal state. So I hope that makes sense to you guys. But one of the things, again, like I said, I found incredibly valuable in helping me work through this human experience is energy work. And I give the energy work this definition, that it's a method of allowing light to assist and release low vibrational thoughts and feelings, to gain clarity and to receive the healing power of love. And along with that, because one of my other tools is essential oils. Why would essential oils be a valuable tool for helping you during grief? I say it's because it's a natural remedy from plants that are creations on this earth in their pure, natural, and concentrated form that provide a very gentle and yet high vibration experience to support your healing journey. So they're powerful in that. So what I'm going to do for the rest of my time together is I'm going to break down the 5 stages of grief. I'm going to introduce to you some essential oil options. And then as a group, I'm just going to go through and do some energy work. So at that stage, you can just sort of relax, take some deep breaths, and just feel different, see if you feel different. It's very, energy is subtle, and not everybody's super aware of what they're feeling or can define it. But just allow it to be. And when I do energy work, I use muscle testing. So I'm like using my hands like this, probably lower. And I'm testing certain things like different energy systems and other blocks that might be coming on in your timelines or in your body systems. But as a group as a whole, of course, I don't do anything I can't force you to accept energy work. It's not something that I can just say, you have to accept this. You always have the veto power of saying, I will receive it or I won't. And but I have found that most of our spirits are completely open to the beautiful light that comes with energy work. So just wanted to put that out there. So let's start with denial, okay? Denial is just when you're in that complete state of shock, like I was when my cousin told me about my other cousin. And and there's a lot of different things going on in each state. But one of the things that, and I've chosen these oils, they might not be your go-to oils if you're familiar with them for different states of healing, but I felt impressed that these were the ones that we need to talk about today, and share why. So when you're feeling the need to withdraw, cedarwood is a good oil to bring you back into community, to bring you back to be supported by people. When you feel the need to control, cypress is the need to trust the flow of life. Now, think of all of this in context of wanting to deny the reality of something in your life, okay? So that's the aim of this. When you're in denial, you need to escape from reality, right? Reality doesn't exist when you're in denial. And so eucalyptus becomes a tool and to learn to trust your body's ability to deal with pain. When you need to close your eyes to the pain, you need to shut off viewing it. Lemongrass helps you bring in and allow spiritual clarity. When you need to hold on to something super tight, because it can't be any other way, oregano is something that will help release that attachment and allow for change. When you find that life is not making any sense at all, citrus bliss is something that can help rekindle that fire of life. And when you find yourself full of cynicism and wanting to blame people, whatever, forgive is a great blend that can help you let go and allow. All right. So I'm going to now, with that, just do a quick check on our group as a whole and do some energy work. You're not going to see like all the things that I'm doing, but just sort of feel it out, and I'll sort of explain what's coming up, and then we'll clear it and move on to the next stage of grief. Okay. So we're going to go to the energy systems. I test 7 different energy systems, and I'll tell you which ones are coming up weak. The meridians are coming up weak for most everyone right now. If you're not familiar with the meridians, they're acupressure points are what we touch when we are stimulating, I guess you could say, the meridians. I'm not going to say which ones are stuck, but we're going to clear that. Anything else in more of denial? Nope, that's all for denial. So pretty simple, pretty easy. That's one of the things that I love about energy work. It doesn't have to be hard or complicated. So meridians were the biggest hang up for people in the denial section. Okay, so let's move on to anger, the next stage of grief. All right, so anger is an often misunderstood emotion, and there's a lot of things that come with anger, and a lot of shame that comes with anger. Sometimes we don't even know why we're angry. We can't figure out what's going on, really. So the oils that I chose here for anger, well, I chose blue tansy because when we're in a place where we're resisting the emotion, like we can't allow ourselves to feel angry, we don't like, getting into that place. Blue tansy can be used to help to actually spark change for you, which is a good thing. Cinnamon, when you're full of fear, cinnamon can be help you accept your power, like how truly powerful you are. And that anger is a sign of that power, honestly. It connects you to something like that. Frankincense, when you're angry at God, frankincense will be a good one for you to soften that, to be open to trusting God again. When you're trapped in toxic emotions, Purify is a great one to use because it's going to help release so you can receive healing. All right. Let's see. For when you are feeling scattered, and that can create so many different emotions, but anger can come from that scattered feeling. I know sometimes I get that way with my kids where I'm just super short with them because I'm not balanced. I'm not grounded. Balance, the oil, when we use that oil in those moments, helps us feel present, helps us to become present. When we have anger that is actually showing up in our body and creating tension in our muscles and in the body, using aroma touch will help us relax and to find a more gentle pace, a place of harmony in that space. And then peace is a blend that when you need to control, your need for control comes from a place of anger. Peace is a great one to help you reconnect to that source of peace, thus like sort of mitigating or like dissipating that anger. So all of these are just suggestions for you to consider as you use oils for assisting you in healing. And the oils that we use, and I know many of you guys are familiar with, are doTERRA brand oils, and that's because they have such a high vibration to them. They are the best oils for emotional energy like work because the vibration they're just so pure. That vibration is so real. Okay. So that's super important to realize when you're going to grab oils. Don't consider that, something off the shelf at the Whole Foods store, whatever, natural store is going to be as powerful and significant as the concentration and the purity of CPTG oils. So let's talk about, let's do some energy clearing here as a group on anger and just see what comes up. I think oftentimes energy just likes to make it simple, so we might not have a ton to clear. We're going to go into body systems first, what body systems are coming up for people. Adrenals. I can imagine that anger can deplete our energy quite a bit. The central nervous system. That's all for that. Anything more? We're going to go into the energy systems. And primary rhythms are coming up. And I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with primary rhythms, but it's just sort of like your unique way of going about life. And each of you have that personal rhythm. So let me just see what's coming up for the primary rhythms. It's more in the yin energy right now, and the spleen. And spleen has a lot to do with worry, and it's actually the late summer energy too. So no more to do there. Clear that. Anything more for anger? No. So everybody take a deep breath and just release it. All right. So that's all for anger. All right, let's move on. Oops. I'm moving this chat over here so I can see my screen. Bargaining. Okay, let's talk about bargaining. This is totally normal. In fact, I was watching this sweet Korean movie last night where this couple that had been married 75 years, one of them was dying, and the kids were bargaining with their parents. It was really interesting to watch grief happen in front of me after I've been studying it like I have recently. So bargaining, the oils that I chose for bargaining are cedarwood. Well, I'll just go through them each one at a time. When you have only one solution that your mind is fixed on, it can only be this way. That's why you bargain, is because you say, if this person sticks around, then I'll do this, because this is the only solution. This is the only way I can live my life if it looks this way. And so when using cedarwood, what happens is that we open ourselves to greater support system than we ever considered before. So we're actually saying, oh, it doesn't have to just be this way because I have these other supports in my life. All right. So cedarwood could be a good oil for bargaining moments. When you need to move from when in bargaining, you're moving from one state of loss to another quite a bit. This is how our brain sort of manages grief, is we do that if only this, or if I had only this, and we're moving quickly in our head from one state to another. And so when we use dill, that can help us is for those states of overwhelm and when we have way too much to digest. Okay. Let's see here. I'll come back to these questions in a second. Let's see. Geranium. When you feel lack of trust in relationships, sometimes people who have been estranged from people, they feel so much guilt, and there's a lack of trust there. So they come in and they make bargaining deals with God or whomever in their grief to help reconcile that. So when there's a lack of trust in relationships, you can actually using geranium helps bring love and connection. And when you feel, moving on to red mandarin, when you feel you can move out, how did I say this? Red mandarin basically is teaching us to become resilient so that we can, again, when we get fixed on that, oh, it only has to look this way. If you show up for me like this, God, then I will do this. Actually, it can teach us to understand that we're stronger than we think we are, and we can be resilient to the challenges in our lives. And it doesn't have to look the way we think it needs to look. Moving on to On Guard. One of the reasons I love On Guard is just because of its protective nature. And so when you're feeling in this bargaining stage, you're feeling very vulnerable. You're feeling quite weak also. And so On Guard is just an oil energetically that's going to bring more strength to your inner self. Sunshine Blend is one that when you're caught up in the pain of a moment, it can actually help you remember the joy. You know, when you're grieving and you're thinking of like all the sad moments or the regrets, right? Sunshine Blend can actually help you start thinking of all the positive things that have occurred in those relationships or in those experiences. And then when you're feeling like you need to bargain because there is just no joy in the loss, how was I writing this? Because joy is found in no loss, meaning like I can't have, like, I need this to stick around in my life, and that's going to bring me happiness, because otherwise there is no joy in my life. But cheer again is just going to help you restore hope that all will work out for your good, that it all is going to work out for the best for you. All right. I can see, Nicole was answering some of those questions, how to apply different oils for emotionals. Yes, just like that. I would diffuse them. I love to put them right here over my chest, over the heart, definitely. And consistent use of oils for emotional support is important until you feel like you've sort of moved through that phase and are able to release it. And that's more of an intuitive thing. And that's part of the whole beauty of this journey of using tools around us to support us, is learning to trust yourself, learning to trust your intuition, like think and feel and ponder and say, what am I? Where am I at? What do I feel impressed to do or to use, or those kinds of things, all right? So let's do an energy clearing for bargaining. For all of us are in states and stages of this at different phases. So let me test for this, for bargaining for the group. We're going to go to the energy systems first again. And there's some chakra energy that needs to be cleared. And mostly in the third chakra, which if you're not familiar with is your solar plexus. This is your power center. And if you consider the fact that bargaining is saying, I don't have the power, so you have to do this for me or else, or what if this or that, and you completely are giving away your power in bargaining instead of trusting your power, trusting your strength and your ability to heal. So we're going to clear that. And there's nothing else coming up for our group right now for bargaining. Okay, let's move on to depression. Now, this is the kind of depression that is not mental illness, and it doesn't necessarily need medication. It is important to feel sad. It is important to feel the depth of your loss and of your emotion. And that is not to be just glazed over and forgotten, because the depth of our feeling shows how deeply we loved in different capacities, in different relationships, in different experiences. And that is a good thing. Love is a beautiful and complicated emotion that can bring so much to the table. So depression is not the enemy. It's an important part of grieving and healing. And especially if others around you are concerned about that, I would encourage you to express to them that this is not this is a stage I'm going through. Just be patient with me. I need to feel this. And let them know that you're working through something. Because other people like to be the fixer-uppers, and they come in and they try to make things better for you, and that's appreciated and good, but it's okay to just acknowledge that you're in a state where you need to feel depth and feel sadness. So when it comes to depression, I chose these oils. Again, you'll see some common oils throughout, and they're there for different reasons. So again, depression is when you feel that need to pull back, to retreat, to just really not engage energetically, like have any energy towards others. You just are sort of, I need to just be me kind of thing. Blue Tansy will help you to learn to trust your intuition and how you live that out, okay, and how you take action with that. When you're stuck in one perspective, and sometimes depression does make us think this is the only thing will ever happen. You can't see anything else but the depressed state or the sadness. Clary Sage can actually help you open your mind to a new vision of what is possible. And it's a beautiful oil for so many reasons when it comes to perceptions and clarity. When you feel caught in darkness, which I think a lot of people describe depression as heavy and dark, using an oil like frankincense helps us to connect with the light. When you feel unconsolable, myrrh is a beautiful and gentle oil that helps you to come in, to help you feel nurtured, not alone, and held like as if you were a little baby in a mother's arms kind of thing, that you are cared for and cherished, okay? Roman chamomile, when you I think this is a beautiful oil to give you courage to explore the loss. It is okay to explore the depth of your pain. And Roman chamomile will help you go into those painful places and also help you find purpose in them. That they are not for naught, and that there is reasons, and it is good, and it can become something beautiful. Deep blue, again, similar to Roman chamomile, allowing you to go when you want to avoid the pain, when you want to avoid the feelings. Thus, you become just sort of numb to everything. And some people describe depression as, I feel completely numb. I don't feel anything. Deep blue is one that can help you go. It stimulates in a physical way. It makes you feel something, right? But it also is going to help you go into the lessons of those that you can learn and trust the lessons of pain. That it is not something, again, to be scared of or afraid of. So those are some oils that you can use for those depressed states. I'm going to do, again, a group energy clearing on this and see what comes up for our group today. We're going to go back to body systems and see what's coming up here for some energy around this in the body systems. Your adrenals are coming up again. Thyroid is coming up again. And the muscular and skeletal system and the gastrointestinal system and the circulatory system. Okay, so quite a bit actually going on with body systems and depression. Everybody take a deep breath. All right. There's nothing else for us to clear when it comes to this stage of grief for right now. So we'll move on to the next one, which is acceptance. This is the most likely the final stage of coming to terms with loss and grief. Now, a lot of people think acceptance means that you're okay. A lot of people, they feel safe when other people say, yeah, I'm okay, I'm fine. That makes them feel safe. But it's not that you're okay with the loss. It's just that you've come to a place of peace with it and a place of acceptance that is actually reality. And I'm okay with that reality as I move forward. And your energy now shifts from giving all your time and attention to the grief and the loss. And your energy is now shifting into creating life and hope and future and all the other things that come with life. Okay. So let's talk about acceptance. Bergamot When you're feeling a sense of rejection, all right, this is the oil of self-acceptance. So when you're and then cinnamon, when you're feeling a rejection of the body, like you don't accept your body. Maybe you lost a limb. Okay, maybe you're grieving the loss of an organ of your body. Maybe you're grieving something else with your body. Cinnamon is one that can help you come to accept the power of your body and the beauty of it. When you're rejecting ideas and information, dill is a great oil for helping you accept ideas, receive those into your world, okay? When you feel defeated by life, and I think after a grieving process, it is normal to come to the table and feel completely exhausted, completely defeated. Fennel is a great oil that helps us pour energy back into our life. And then Melissa oil, when we feel stifled by grief, again, this has been an overwhelming experience and we can feel completely like stifled by it. Melissa, using this opens us to light and to purpose. It's a beautiful oil, truly one of my favorites for emotional and support. It's a beautiful, beautiful oil. When we have loss of confidence and purpose, and sometimes after loss and grief and through this grieving process, we sort of feel like, what am I supposed to do now? And who am I? And Roman chamomile helps us come to a place of acceptance of our purposes and acceptance that we can have confidence in ourselves again too. The sunshine blend. Okay, so one of the things that I thought was interesting about this blend is that it's like sometimes we get lost in the heaviness of adulting. And I know that's just a funny phrase to use, but it just can be that way. So really, Sunshine Blend helps us connect to our childlike energy, all right? And then when we feel weighed down by this whole experience, Cheer is a great blend to help us restore that hope and restore that joy. So I'm going to do a quick energy clearing on this, see what we can shift for you guys to help you get to this healthier place and manage that for the group. So we're going to go break on that. Sorry, you guys are like, what is she doing over there? Timeline came up, which is an interesting thing for a group. But I'm just going to trust this and we're just going to see what age numbers it breaks on and then we'll clear that. So 9, 46, 75. Anything else? Nope. Okay, so we'll clear that out on those timelines, just some key timelines that it might not apply to everybody on the group, but just some of you needed those timelines cleared. And anything else for acceptance? Nope, there isn't. So we're good there. All right, so with that being said, I hope you guys have felt some relief. You feel maybe a little more clarity, a little more hope. I just want to remind you of this concept that we are eternal beings and loss is a foreign concept to our eternal nature. And yet it is a human experience. It is a human feeling and we are designed in this human experience to feel deeply this sense of loss. And so that is with the purpose of helping us appreciate the beauty and the abundance that we live in and how much we can, as humans and as eternal beings, have the depth and the capacity to love and to receive love. So these are my final thoughts to you guys today. Trust your body. Trust your body. It is an amazing gift and it knows how to help you. Listen to your body. Trust your spirit. Your spirit is so intelligent and it's smarter than your brain. So trust your spirit. And know that you are not alone in grief. And use tools just of support. I use energy work and I use essential oils. You might have other tools that you are drawn to, but use tools. We are given given these tools or pray for tools to come into your life to help you work through these kinds of powerful moments of grief, because there is so much power on the other side. So as a way for me to support you, I have, I'm willing to meet with people if they're open to it. It's free 15-minute phone call or Zoom call, where we can sit down, sort of go over your grief experience and sort of identify which essential oils would be supportive to you on an emotional level. If you want to take advantage of that, you can go to this link, calendly.com/lightsamliving/grief support, and you can schedule that. I'm doing this only through the first week of December, and I have like 2 days a week with 1 hour. So it's very narrow time, but it's something that I can do. If you feel inspired to connect with me that way, I would love to, serve and give back. Again, I don't do private sessions anymore with people, but this is something that I feel inspired to be a part of, and I want to give back. So thank you again for being a part of this. Thank you, Nicole, for the time to share this. I really appreciate it. Very healing for me.
So much. That was amazing, and so much goodness there, and you can just feel your heart coming through the screen, girl. So
thank you so much, Nicole.
Let me go ahead and hopefully you guys got her Calendly link.
Yes.
We're gonna pull up. Let's see, our recording.